The Uncle Gold Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hi everyone, welcome to the Uncle Gold Podcast. My name is Borna Zuber. I'm the host of this show, and today we have a special episode. This is actually the first episode that I'm ever doing without anyone other than me being on this podcast. If you haven't noticed yet, I've made 10 other episodes before this one, so I wanted to kind of celebrate, and I think I'll make a thing out of this one, that after every 10 episodes, I'll do one episode on my own, just to kind of give you a review of everything that we've gone through. And in this particular episode, I want to kind of introduce myself, because if you have been listening to this podcast, you probably haven't met me yet, because I usually let my guests talk more than me. I always think that it's value for them to, tell their story, and for me to learn from them, and also, of course, for you listening to learn from the people that I bring on. So I wanted to do an exception this time, where I talk a little bit about myself, where you get to experience who the host is, and kind of where the direction is of this podcast, where I'm going, what I'm trying to do, and how this is going to look for 2021. Happy New Year to everyone. It's January 2021. Everyone's at home with their families. The holidays are actually ending soon, so most people are returning to work now, or are already working, or haven't even stopped working. I hope that's not the case for you guys, but I hope that you had a nice year as far that as possible. We'll reflect on that a little bit, but as the new year is coming, I think it's important to set goals and plans for yourself, and kind of figure out who you want to be and what you want to do in the world. And generally, setting goals is something that helps us get there. I've done a few videos on that on my other YouTube channels, but you can find a lot of resources online from people who do talk about topics like that. And I think it's very interesting to work on yourself. Personally, throughout my life, it's helped me a lot. Everything from reading, listening to podcasts, working on myself with some kind of mind exercises. I think that's just great. The amount of feedback you get from yourself is amazing, and you kind of gain more awareness. Most people don't work on themselves. I think that's a huge loss. I would recommend for everyone listening to this podcast to pick up any of the self-development books that you can find. Tony Robbins is great to start. Brian Tracy. There's millions of them on the internet that you can find. But in this episode, I want to focus a little bit on myself, being a little bit selfish here, but not being that much selfish. It's more of introducing myself to you guys. So as you've heard from the previous episodes, or I'll just treat this episode as you're here for the first time. You don't know who I am or what I do, and you haven't listened to any of the podcasts before. So my name is Borna Zuber. I'm originally from Croatia, so that's a small country on a little bit to the right side from Italy. We're in the European Union, and as far as I remember, I've lived there. I've traveled to many places with my parents. I lived in a small village outside of Zagreb. Zagreb is the main city of the country, and had a pretty normal life. It was a small village, so there was not that many people. In elementary school, I was pretty good. I had a few friends that were really into studying, so I kind of tried to do my best and get really good grades, and studied a lot. I spent time in nature, of course, because we had a lot of places to go outside, and internet wasn't that popular then. By the end of the high school period, we got internet and computers and everything, of course, so it kind of started changing with time. But most of the childhood there, I remember spending time with parents, neighbors, friends, relatives, traveling a little bit, and also spending time in nature. So that was really fun. But then, as the end of elementary school was approaching, it was time to make a decision. Where do we want to go? I was pretty good at school, and I was pretty good with languages. I learned English and German when I was even younger. So I watched a lot of cartoons, and it kind of just went into my mind, because I watched them without having subtitles underneath the cartoons that I was watching. Back then, it was like Pokemon and Digimon, and at one point, I lost connection to all the English channels. So I just had the option of watching German channels, and that's kind of how I learned both languages. We, of course, had them in school. So apart from all the classes being in Croatian, we had English and German once or twice per week. And since I was really good at it, basically fluent in elementary school, my parents decided that it would be best if I would go to a language school. So I moved to Zagreb, which is the capital of Croatia. It's like a million people city with its surrounding smaller satellite cities. It goes to around 1 million people, and it's a really cool city. I really liked it. But when I got there first, it was a bit of a shock because from a 2,000 person village to a 1 million people city, it was quite a difference, you know. I don't know if you've ever been through any big change like that, but it makes you think about a lot of stuff. And I had to move in with my grandma. At first, I loved it. Later, I really didn't. So that kind of changed over time, and a lot of things started changing. You know how high school is; everything's new. A lot of stuff are not as you expect them to be. Some things are surprisingly good, but a nice mix of everything. The school was a gymnasium. We had most our courses in German. Since it was a language school, I had the option to choose between which classes I want to join. Of course, I went for the German ones because my German was already really good, so I wanted to improve that even more. And I got a DSD diploma for having C1 level of German. So at that point in my life, my German was the best. I spoke English only, when talking to people about shows and stuff like that. As I didn't know a lot of people in my hometown, I loved that Zagreb had a lot of people. It's a vibrant city. Croatia has a strong coffee culture, so you would notice people before school, after school, going to cafes, sitting down, drinking coffee, and talking about life and everything what's going on. So we have this strong habit of going for a few coffees even per day, and a lot of people do it. When you walk through main streets of Zagreb, you can see like just endless cafes there, and a lot of people sitting outside drinking coffee. It's just natural for us. We do it all the time. We do it also at home, but most people go out to a cafe to do it. Every bar, of course, has a terrace because they know that people want to sit outside, enjoy the sunshine, and drink a coffee. So most people do it like that. Croatia is a country where we have strong tourism in the coastal region. When you look at the map of Croatia, we're like C-shaped. So the upper part of the letter C is more on the inside of the country. It's more like up north, of course, but it doesn't have that much access to the sea. And then the lower part of the letter C is all coast. We have over 1,000 islands, and it's really nice. We get tourists from all over the place. It's really beautiful. Dubrovnik is very famous. It's the most south city in Croatia. And you probably know it because of the tourism and because of a few episodes of Game of Thrones were filmed there. I'm not a huge fan of that show, but a lot of people are, so I'm sure that you watched it and you've seen the walls and all of that. Definitely would recommend visiting Croatia for like spending your holidays there. It's really, really good, especially like if you can do island hopping. It's great because you see a lot of stuff in a short period of time. And generally, Croatia's tourism is on a good path of developing itself. Of course, 2020 is a little bit of a exception because the whole lockdown situation happened and people couldn't travel basically. But there weren't many cases in Croatia when the summer started. So a lot of people did actually come this year to the coast. And of course, it wasn't on the level as previous years, but it was still okay. And yeah, generally, the economy is strongest in the main city, Zagreb. The largest number of companies are there. The largest companies are there. If I would compare it to Ireland, where I moved in 2018, it would be like Dublin. Zagreb and Dublin are pretty similar in some aspects. Croatia and Ireland are similar in a lot of aspects. Both smaller countries, like we don't have that much territory, but both have strong culture. And I'm going to talk about similarities in another video. So let's get back to the high school days. At that point, I was fascinated with people because I didn't know that many people, and I kind of got hooked on meeting new people and learning about them, talking about their lives and different topics. So I went for a bunch of coffees with a bunch of people, went into a lot of discussions and ideas, and kids are like thinking about different stuff. And I say kids here very lightly, because I consider myself still a kid compared to some older people. And um, I loved it. I loved high school. It was really cool. There were some parts that I really didn't like. It left a lot of impressions on me because a lot of things were new and I wasn't used to it. For instance, people who grew up in Zagreb, they were kind of used to that type of life because they've seen that before. And I kind of wasn't. I was used to like having a few friends on the countryside and just like walking around on fields, and here everything is like big buildings and fast type of life. And so yeah, as high school was going on, I was thinking of again, directions, where to go with my life, what to do, how to approach things. And of course, the question of which college to choose was coming. The obvious one was to go for languages again, because I was really good at that, and there were a lot of things that I wasn't good at, like math. I didn't like those like nature subjects, like physics and chemistry. Later, I kind of learned to love them from afar, but during high school, I really didn't. I was more of a, I would say, people person, because I loved topics like that. We had two courses that I really loved. It was sociology and psychology on the last year. That was really, really fun, because there I got to learn about people and how to think and groups, and a lot of character traits that you can see in people around the world. And I thought it was very, very interesting. So I kind of got conflicted in between of what I want to do, like study psychology or languages. And it was already summer when I had to choose which college I wanted to go to, and I had a tough time choosing. And then I spoke to my dad about it, and he basically told me, like, look, you know German already, you're really, really good at it, like, why would you study that? Maybe you could study something else and have German as a like a bonus here, so then you have like two things that you're really good at, and that would be kind of good for my career. And there was some really, really good advice. We spoke about colleges that were available. And then coming back to the tourism booming in Croatia, I decided to study hotel and tourism management. It was a great college. It was a smaller college, so there weren't that many people there, but courses were really, really good. I really learned a lot there, and there I got to kind of what I was doing during high school, I kind of managed to do on a different scale. And I really did like it. I really love studying. I fell in love with meeting even more people. And as we grew older and more, like smarter, more experienced, and the topics got better and everything, I loved learning and I loved meeting people. So at one point, I was thinking of what I want to do with my career when I finish college, and of course, hotels were obviously the best solution there. But as I learned from my colleagues and the professors and people that I saw around me, I kind of thought about what I want to do. And I came to the conclusion that I didn't know yet, but that I was willing to work. And I thought that if I started working earlier than other people, I would have an advantage, like being faster at it. So during college, I started looking for jobs to kind of gain more experience, because I was thinking, like, all right, if my colleagues finish 5 years of college and have zero working experience, and I have at least 1 year of experience, I would have an advantage. So somewhere in the middle of on the second year, or maybe to start of the third year, somewhere around that, I started applying for jobs. And first it was like silly stuff, like handing out flyers, or I worked in a night bar as a waiter that helps other waiters wash the dishes, take out the trash, and basically anywhere where you would have to jump in, I will be the guy that flies around and helps. So after that, I found a first real job, which was a summer job for like 4 months. It was for the Croatian Car Association, where I would be in a call center and take calls from people whose cars would break down, and then we will send a truck to help them tow back to the nearest city, or send a mechanic to repair the car there, depending on the situation. And that was fun. I learned responsibility, and it was also a big shock because those were 12-hour shifts. So for the first job to have 12-hour shifts, that was pretty tough. I wasn't used to it, but I kind of gave it my all, and I got some really good results, and I loved working with the colleagues there. Again, learned a lot. I was still studying while I was doing it, and all the time I was looking for an opportunity in a hotel. And at the same time, coincidentally, Hilton, the worldwide hotel brand, decided to build the first Hilton hotel in Zagreb, and they decided to make it a DoubleTree by Hilton. So a lot of people apply there. Of course, there are a lot of older hotels in Zagreb, and no like really bigger, newer hotels being opened there. So they were kind of the first of their kind, and there was a lot of, as I said earlier, tourism in Croatia was booming, and a lot of people started not only coming to the coast but also to the city. So they saw an opportunity there, started to build a hotel. I saw an opportunity there and applied for a job. I got a job at the reception, so that was what I was aiming for. I was kind of hoping of getting a promotion there because I saw that since I was studying hotel management that I would get to a managerial position with time, but they wanted to build a really, really strong team. And for all the other departments, they would take people who had at least a few years of experience. And I didn't mind at first because, I got the job that I wanted, right? I would wear a suit and stand there at the reception. It was really, really cool. I would meet every day like hundreds of people that would come to the hotel. We would tell them about the city and about the hotel and everything that we did. So that was really, really cool. I think I learned most about other cultures and people from all over the world. I think that's invaluable experience. If anybody is looking to improve their career through meeting new cultures, I believe in international hotel where you get people traveling from all over the world is brilliant. Here I also learned a lot of valuable lessons about business, about management, about how to handle staff and teams and communication inside a company. And I think Hilton is doing a really, really good job. And in a matter of no time, we actually became the best hotel in Zagreb. We got the highest rewards, best reviews on TripAdvisor, and we were really proud of what we were doing. We had a great manager. She was from the Netherlands, and she did a really, really good job. So all the time I was learning, copying stuff that my colleague was doing, just to kind of get the skills that I need to get an advantage over my colleagues in college. And there first of all, I learned a lot about business people because we had a lot of companies sending their business people to our hotel. Since it was new, it looked really, really good, and it had a nice feel to it. It was international. It was a Hilton brand. It was internationally recognized. So a lot of companies sent their people there, and it really worked well. But the main thing I got there was actually meeting people who were running companies, going to meetings, traveling internationally, and you could kind of, I personally didn't know what they were doing, right? But you could feel from the conversations that you had with people there, how they were thinking and how they were conducting themselves. And you could see a lot of different mindsets in one place. I think that was invaluable experience for me, and I'm very grateful for having that opportunity. And the second big thing that I learned there is actually how important sales are. They had a really, really strong sales team there. It was the place where I fell in love with sales. I tried to do it later, and I will get into that in a second. So basically, the sales team had the option to earn more if they sell more rooms throughout the year. And if you're familiar with sales jobs, that's usually how they work. You sell a product or a service, and then you get a commission based on your performance. So if you do better, you get a higher paycheck. If you don't, you probably get a lower paycheck or don't get paid at all, or just a basic level that you would normally get. It depends on how that structure works in each company, right? But they had an incentive version where they would get more if they sold more rooms to companies and tourist agencies and all of that. And I saw them going to meetings, negotiating, practicing their sales skills, and putting really, really a lot of hours into closing the deal. And I really like that hustle aspect of it. At the same time, a friend introduced me to Tony Robbins and kind of the whole mindset game. So I was kind of learning how to develop myself. And I saw sales as the perfect opportunity to practice all the skills that I learned, and I really wanted to get into it. And I applied multiple times, but as I said, that was my first kind of like a real job where I had more than a few months experience, and they wanted to build a team with people who had a lot of years of experience. So after 3 years, I didn't get it. And then I just decided to switch over my career to something more sales focused and oriented. And I told myself, all right, I'm just going to take on sales jobs. So I tried in a few companies. Some of them were really good. Some of them were really bad. And I don't want to get into details right now. We can say that for another time when we talk more about how to conduct a company or what's going on with the economy in Croatia. But there's a lot of corruption in Croatia, a lot of legislative and those like paperwork situations are really, really slow. So sometimes a lot of companies don't perform in the best and optimum way. I think that can be improved a lot through like putting everything online, and a lot of solutions will provide themselves there. So I was always looking for a better company, better position, better conditions, and all of that to kind of improve my career. Of course, higher salary, and I would accept sales jobs where the salary was lower, but you could earn more through commission. And I really liked that. It was great practice. I did door-to-door sales, telephone sales. I did real estate, telecommunications, a bunch of stuff. So I kind of got a view around sales and communicating and negotiating from a few different perspectives, and I really liked it. But the bad thing about it is that I wasn't naturally good at it. So every time it didn't feel like it's my natural condition. I was a lot better in the coffee style conversations that would take longer. Sales is usually more focused into optimizing what you're saying in a small period or a short window of time and convincing someone to take your product. Usually, harder negotiations happen on a higher level of management. So, for a starting positions where I was at the start of my career, it was kind of hard to get there, where you had someone for an hour where you can explain a lot of stuff in a lot of detail. And as you probably notice where this is going, and as you're listening to the podcast where I'm chatting to myself for at least an hour, you notice that I like longer conversations. And that's how I usually prefer it, because throughout all these coffees and going outs and talking to people, I realized that most people won't show them their real self at the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes or even an hour. So it takes time to kind of open up. And sometimes people just relax after a longer conversation because they don't have that in-depth conversations with other people on a regular basis. I noticed that in my podcast as well. The first 15 minutes of each podcast kind of feel rigid. And then once we go through that period, later, even the communication of my guests feels different, So I think it's a natural occurrence, and I just prefer it that way, where I have a longer conversation talking to people about different topics. So, I was kind of going nowhere with my career there in sales, and then I decided it was smart move to change it a little bit. I liked two other departments that seemed attractive to me. Those were marketing and HR, or human resources. I liked it because it was not that focused on hitting hard goals, but more on talking to people and communicating. And I thought that I needed to work more on my communication skills, although they've already gotten a lot better than they were in, let's say, high school. So I accepted a job at a recruitment company in Croatia that worked with German companies. And since I spoke German, it was great because I could help on all fronts. And there was a lot of stuff that I was doing there to improve that company, because it was pretty small. The boss was a little bit older, so he wasn't familiar with technologies, and like cloud computing was magic, So there's a lot of stuff that could have been improved there. And to the 1.5 years that I was there, I managed to pump up their numbers and get a lot more people employed in Germany there. And it was going really, really well. But the boss there was kind of before pension, and one of the colleagues left for maternity leave. So it was just us in the office, and he was very panicky. And most of his panic would fall on my shoulders. So he would portray every situation 10 times worse than it was. And I didn't like working in those conditions, So I started looking for a new opportunity. And by the end of that working period, I was pretty stressed out from working longer hours in sales and putting in my 120%. And I was getting close to burnout. And then I met a friend who has a small tourist agency on an island called Hvar. It's also in Croatia, and it has a lot of tourism, a lot of sunny days. It has like luxury tourism and also like more secluded private types of tourism where there's not that many people, and they also have like different types in different parts of the island. So it's very interesting to visit there. I've never been to Hvar. I only heard stories about it. And my friend asked me if I wanted to take a management role in that position, but that wouldn't be that managerial as it sounds. So it was more like a summer job where I could get my portion of relaxation that I needed. He wouldn't even be there most of the time, and he just wanted someone who would manage it a little bit. I say that I chose my words wisely there because the previous manager or employee he had there last year didn't even record any data. So he didn't know how much he earned, how much he spent on gas or stuff like that, So it was a small company renting out cars and bikes and scooters and things like that. We also tried doing a little bit of real estate, but there just wasn't enough time to do it there. I think he could have done it in the next few years. There was a lot of opportunities there, but for the year that I was there, or basically for the few months that I was there, I really didn't put in that much effort as I usually do, and spent more time just relaxing and like I would take one of the bikes, and during my lunch break I would go to the beach for a swim, which is not something you can do in a regular job in an office in a cubicle sweating there. So I really loved it. I really enjoyed spending time after work, like sitting on a rock, watching the sunset, meditating. I started writing a journal, listening to a lot of personal development audiobooks. And it was at that time where I kind of decided to listen more to Gary Vee. If you're not familiar with Gary, he's a American. Well, he's a Belarusian who moved to the US. So he's a American entrepreneur. He started multiple companies. He's doing really, really well, and he's really big on social media. So not only does he post a lot, but he also helps other people build their online businesses. So he's really, really cool, and he has a lot of positive intent to help people. So I think his net score for humanity is really, really good. And my girlfriend at that time was also looking for a change in her job. She was thinking of maybe finding something else. She basically got a job in the same hotel where I used to work, in the Hilton Hotel that I mentioned earlier in the podcast. She also worked at the reception. She wanted to go into reservations, but she couldn't get it because you know how the structure in the company is. It was pretty set, and for the next few years, she probably couldn't get any new moves in her career. So she decided to look somewhere else. And I'll just take a small sip of water there. So she started looking online, and there was a few hotel companies who did recruiting through LinkedIn. They came to Zagreb from different countries. A few of them were from Ireland, and they found her on LinkedIn, offered her a job. She went for an interview, got the job there, and it was a really good offer. So we talked about it. We decided to take it. So she went to Ireland a few months before me because I promised my friend already I would do the summer job there. And then after the summer, I followed her to Ireland, and end of 2018, we both moved together here on this rainy island. So it was completely different than the sunny island where I spent the summer beforehand. And I've been here since the last 2 years. So yeah, 2018 until 2020. That's 2 years. Good job. Great math skills. You see, I'm proficient in it since elementary school. And when I got here, I also got a job in the same hotel just to kind of get going, but that's not where I wanted to be from the start. And I immediately started looking for new opportunities, and I found this company called Sigmar. We started working together. It's a recruitment company. It's highly focused on sales. They were using social media a lot as well. and I worked there first as a recruiter, but then I had a little bit better results in business development. So they transferred me over from recruiting to business development, which is basically finding new companies that want to recruit people for them. Our focus was on IT personnel, so developers who were looking for jobs in Germany, of course. Since I spoke Germany, that was very valuable. And I spent the last year and a half there. It was a really good company, but of course, because of this whole COVID situation, things changed. Not a lot of people were recruiting. So right now, I'm in the process of finding a new company where I want to work in. And somewhere in 2019, I started thinking more and more about social media and producing content. And Gary was very argumentative with his ideas, and I kind of believed him because I really do agree that if you're doing sales of anything, like no matter what you're selling, you have to be in front of the customer, the consumer. And if they don't know about you, they won't buy from you because they don't see the product, so they don't have the opportunity to send their money your way. And of course, it seemed easy, right? Just posting stuff online. And back before 2018, I wasn't big on social media, really. I didn't like it. I found it boring and annoying to take pictures all the time and post them online. And I was kind of more into the direction of like, why would anybody have to know what I'm doing, right? Like, I'm just living my life. Like, I don't care about your life. Why would you care about my life? But my perspective changed. And I tried listening to Gary and started producing a little bit of content on Facebook, posting a few pictures, status updates, stuff like that. Then I tried out Instagram. I had an Instagram account since beforehand, but didn't use it that often. I would watch a few pictures, and that's about it. And then I tried his challenge. I don't think it was a challenge. I kind of made the decision to post content daily on those two platforms, and I would take a picture or a few different pictures, post them on Facebook and Instagram. Then I started experimenting with stories, learned how to do those, a little bit of hashtags and all that. Then I installed Twitter. I actually made Twitter a long, long time ago I think it was in high school, but I used it for like a month and then I never used it again. So I just kind of restarted using it. The same thing actually happened with my YouTube channel that I started in 2019. I think I created the channel in like 2011, which is a long way back, because I had the idea like, oh yeah, I could make YouTube videos, but I wasn't fully committed. And I was kind of thinking about it, and I said, all right, I'm going to leave a profile here. Maybe just one day I'll start it, right? Then I found out that Croatia wasn't a partner company, that you couldn't make money through your videos. And I was crushed. I was depressed. I was like, no, I wanted to make a career out of this. So I gave up before even posting a single video on YouTube, right? So back in 2018, again, I started posting more and more content on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And then Snapchat came along, TikTok came along, other social media like LinkedIn, Xing, and a number of others. And I tried to post a little bit of content on each of them. But the more I was doing that, the more I wanted to kind of explore the option of doing a YouTube channel. And it was always kind of in the back of my mind. And then in 2019, I was just like, all right, I had enough of waiting. I had enough of posting content for like no reason, just like giving updates. Oh, today I'm here. Oh, look, selfie of this. And I decided to make a YouTube channel where I would use my language skills and talk about my life and experiences and bring value to people watching and listening. So what did I do? I took my camera out and I started filming myself like on the street, and I would do one video in Croatian, one in English, and then one in German. And I would basically say the same things 3 times and post them each day. They weren't edited because I didn't know how to edit videos. I didn't have a good thumbnail because I didn't know how to make thumbnails. I just left them like that and made a short description of what I was talking about in the video. So it was pretty basic. It was pretty bad in my opinion, but it wasn't that bad because before I started doing it, I watched a lot of videos online on how to start a YouTube channel, what to do with it, how to improve your YouTube channel, how to get viewers, how to get monetization, and all of that. And I just committed to it, and I've been posting videos ever since. I really loved it. It's a great journey. I learned a lot. I learned to edit. I learned to make thumbnails, and I learned a lot about hashtags and ranking keywords. And I started talking a lot about Ireland and me moving there. As you noticed probably from, if you take a look on the Borna Zuber channel, you will see that there's a lot of people who watch videos about Ireland. Why is that? Since the economy in Croatia is not the best, a lot of people are considering the idea to move to Ireland for a few years, gather up some money, and then, I don't know, rebuild their house or buy a new apartment or something similar. Like, some people really just want to leave and go somewhere where the economy is stable so they can just have a more relaxed life. And that's why a lot of people type into YouTube like how to move to Ireland, how does Ireland look like, how does it feel to live here, how does it feel to move from Croatia to Ireland, right? So I started creating videos like that because I knew people were searching for them, and that brought a lot of people to my channel, and I really did love it. But I noticed that YouTube was pretty bad at distributing 3 languages on one channel to 3 different audiences. So people from Croatia were complaining they were getting my German videos. People here in Ireland would say they're only getting my Croatian videos, and people in Germany would only get English. So I decided to stop posting in the 2 other languages, stuck only to Croatian because the most viewers were there for the videos about Ireland. And I decided to create the podcast, which leads us here. Welcome to the Uncle Gold podcast, of course. I decided to make it in English because I thought I would reach a larger audience. I'm also considering doing a English version of my Borna Zuber channel where I post videos that are kind of useful to people, but I'll have to transfer it in a different direction, not about Ireland, rather about mindset and stuff like that. I don't think I'll do it this year. I think this year will be dedicated to the Borna Zuber channel on Croatian, the Uncle Gold podcast here in English, and the third channel that I started a short while after starting the Uncle Gold podcast, which is basically a sister channel of this podcast, and it's called Uncle Gold Podcast Clips. So I realized that most people don't have enough time to get to this point in the conversation. This podcast is over an hour long. Most people don't have enough time to listen to an hour of a person talking. So they prefer smaller and shorter clips, and they watch short YouTube videos. A lot of people still want them to be useful. So what I did on that channel is I take the best parts from the Uncle Gold podcast and I convert them into small clips of like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. And I post them on the Uncle Gold podcast clips channel because there I attract an audience that doesn't have enough time to listen to the whole thing, but now and then likes to listen to a few parts of the podcast. And it's doing really well. Both channels are doing really, really good. I distributed my podcast all over the internet wherever I can. I'm trying to improve that social media game, as everybody calls it. And I think I'm doing great progress considering that 2 years ago I didn't do it at all. And I'm still trying to learn a lot. And please leave me some feedback in the comments below, because I think that helps a lot. When multiple heads join together, the result is always better. So podcasting is a big thing for me. I learned a lot from it, and I love having guests on, talking for at least an hour with them. And I try to always direct the podcast and the guests towards a direction where it can be useful for you as the listener. I always like to ask questions that I think that would provide the most value. And I always research the person a little bit to see where they're good, what they're good at, what they know about, what can they share, and I kind of prepare for the podcast like that. And I think that I'm doing pretty good for now. Like, I never thought that I would do a podcast. YouTube channel was kind of the idea, and now there's 3 of them. And the podcast. So I think it's going in the right direction. And I think 2021 will be good in that sense, because everybody's staying at home. They have more time listening to things. And I think people are getting more practical with their time, where they do something and that they want to consume something in audio form and not watch it, but listen to it. But it also has to be useful for them. So I don't know, people will be going for a jog or walking their dog or cleaning the dishes or cleaning the house, and they will put headphones on and listen to something useful, and my podcast can be positioned there. So each time that happens, people can take the one of my episodes, listen to it. So I think it will be very fruitful in that aspect. Plus, I always like to think long term. Looking at someone like Joe Rogan, who had a big influence on me when I was younger. I listened to a lot of his podcasts, and just the development of his character and everything that he achieved through his podcast is amazing. I think that the influence is a lot bigger than people realize. Actually, I've been in numerous conversations where people would know like quotes from the Joe Rogan podcast. So that just shows you that people have an effect on people, and I think it's important to steer the direction in something useful and something that's like bringing value to your life. Joe Rogan's doing a really good job. He has different types of guests on. I think I'm going to do kind of the same, but just stir it more in the personal development direction, and getting people who like to talk about stuff that's useful. But I won't just limit it to that. I think personal development comes from different sources, and something that helps you develop won't be the same thing that helped me or the second, third, fifth person, right? Somebody needs to hear something in a different way from a different person. Somebody needs to hear something that's actually not something that you would consider being useful, and you can't really know the effect right away. You can always kind of feel the effect afterwards, after it happens. So I think intent matters there. Two other podcasts that I would say that impacted me a lot were the Tim Ferriss Show. If you haven't heard about Tim Ferriss, he did a lot of experiments on himself, and he's also into peak performance, just like Tony Robbins. He's big on habits and how to hack systems of how to improve yourself. And he is the author of a few books. The most well-known is the 4-Hour Week. It got a lot of publicity and it sold millions of copies. So I would definitely recommend that book. It has I read it, I really liked it, and I kind of want to work towards a week like that. The third podcast that just to finish there, he has amazing guests, and he always tries to get the most value out of them, of like how to construct your daily routine better, and how do you work out, and how did you earn that money, and things like that. So I took a few bits from Joe Rogan, a few bits from Tim Ferriss, and the third person that I really like is actually Pat Flynn. He started podcasting a long time ago, and he has multiple podcasts. He's really doing a good job, and I would also recommend checking out his YouTube channel, where he has a lot of useful videos on how to actually start a podcast and useful tips on how to do it. And I learned a lot from him. He's more on the technical side in the podcasting. Neither Joe nor Tim Ferriss talk about how to start a podcast properly. Pat Flynn does, and I learned a lot from him. I also watch a lot of his concepts that he uses during his shows. I'm going to implement some of those, not all of them, but I like how all three of them have a free flowing style. I think Tim puts the most effort into making it rigid, structured, and I think he follows questions and scripts a lot. And I kind of do the same through working in personal development a lot. I write to-do lists and scripts for myself all the time. So that's nothing new for me. I like how Pat Flynn engages the audience while he's doing his lives that he later turns into podcast episodes. So I'm going to take a little bit out of each and every one of them, but I also want to implement a lot of different aspects from other people. And of course, I want to be my own self, not to forget that. I think an element of authenticity has to be there, present in everything what you're doing. I noticed that during sales, when I would recite a sentence that was kind of practiced in, it sounded better, but it didn't always resonate with people. And I noticed that when I was authentic, it would always resonate with people, but it didn't have the same efficiency as something practiced before. So in sales, I think the most important part is getting the golden ratio between your personality, how much you use it, and practicing sentences that work. When you get the golden ratio down, I think your results multiply a lot. And that's just a big step for everyone, because usually people are really good talkers, but they don't know what works. Or people robotically repeat sentences that they know that do work, but they don't put any of their personality into it. So neither of those kind of get really good results. I think it's always important to put a little bit of both into it. Well, basically, if you don't put any of it in, you won't get any of it out, right? And yeah, there's a lot to learn from other people, and I think that my journey is just starting. So I want to learn a lot more from other people. And in 2021, I want to take time to grow the number of people that I brought on my podcast. I already have 10 people aligned that are going to be the next guests. And I think that after every 10th episode, that I'm going to do like a solo episode like that, reviewing a little bit what we've done, giving you some feedback on how I thought about the guests and what's going on in my life, just so because I don't think you get the chance to do that, to get that during the podcast, because a lot of questions for the guests, and then you kind of don't see my side. So I think it will balance it out nicely. And on these podcasts, this podcast episodes, we'll go into some topics that you might don't even get a chance to hear about. So I think that will be very useful to you. Let's just go through all the episodes that we did from the start. So I wanted the first episode ever to be with my best friend from elementary school. His name is Dominic, and he's also, first of all, he's brilliant. Second of all, he's positioning himself really, really nicely. I think he's going to have a great career. And he's also done a lot of personal development, just like me. So we're kind of going in the same direction there. And I wanted to have him as the first guest, just kind of like a statement of where this podcast is going. Second person was Vlad. He's my colleague from the company Sigmar. I met him here in Ireland, and we kind of resonated with our personalities. Except from the part that sometimes I will stay silent and Vlad will say it in your face. So that's kind of one of the main characteristics that's different about us. But he's a brilliant guy. He's great at sales, and he was doing recruitment for a long time now, working with a lot of people. So there's a lot to learn from that episode on how to get a job and similar topics like that. Third one was Brendan. He was in Sigmar for a short period of time, but we clicked really, really well. I think we think almost exactly the same about a lot of topics. We found a lot of commonalities in talking about Tesla, electric cars, SpaceX, and technology in general. So those episodes will be more focused. You'll see Brendan will come back as a guest, and actually the next episode that I'm doing on the Uncle Gold podcast is with Brendan. We're going to talk about SpaceX more. In the first one, we talked about Tesla a lot more and what electric cars are going to bring for people. And in the next one, we're going to focus more on SpaceX. Fourth interview was Nadia Woods. She's also one of my colleagues from the company Sigmar. She just had great energy. She was great at sales, and she had a great way of like overcoming difficulties and just brought a really good chunk of positivity into the whole mix, and I really loved working with her. Nadia is great. She changed careers there. She loves cooking and doing her own like home cooked meals that she posts on Instagram, and now she's selling kitchens. So it's kind of like a great mix for her, her passion and what she's good at. So I think she's going to have a great career in front of her as well. Then I had a power couple on next. So first one, the episode 5 was Jonathan. Jonathan has his own coaching business, and he's also worked a lot in personal development and had some great tips there that you can use. I haven't heard about neutral thinking, but he told me a lot about that, and I learned a lot from Jonathan. We clicked on a mastermind seminar where he actually invited us to, and it was really, really cool. I really liked talking to him. And then the episode afterwards was his partner Alexandra. She started her own company. She started her app. She has a lot of followers on Instagram, so she's doing the social media game really, really well. She has a company for creating websites called The Digital Ripple. So there's a lot of topics that we kind of discussed there together, and I really like both of these episodes very much. Then I had the first episode with Nathaniel, which is the 7th episode on the Uncle Gold podcast. That was the first person that I actually didn't know before having him on the podcast. We just connected over LinkedIn. I followed some of his content there, noticed that he has two YouTube channels and a podcast. And I started chatting to him. We talked about YouTube, podcasting, and I just invited him. I was like, man, you know a lot about this stuff. Like, why don't we share experiences and ideas? I thought it would be a great idea, and he loved it. And he came on my podcast, and it was great. If you're interested in learning more about developers and programmers, he has a podcast in English and in German, talking about developers and how they started their career, how they approach their careers from different angles. So it's really interesting if you're more interested in technology. Then I did my first live stream with a guy called Stjepan. Sorry, no, the 8th episode was actually with Olivier. He was I got it mixed up there a little bit. So again, going back to personal development, I met Olivier at a money mindset seminar that I went to with my girlfriend, and Olivier kind of had great energy. He was also like soul searching and working a lot on himself, going to Tony Robbins seminars, and we kind of clicked there. We went for lunch and we stayed in contact ever since. I thought it would be a great idea to bring him on. He's also working on his coaching business and his website. I would recommend watching that one as well. He has some great ideas there on some details that I didn't discuss beforehand. And I think we're going to have all of these guests again on the podcast. The next one was the one that I mixed up a little bit beforehand with Stjepan. So I met Stjepan in one of the companies that I mentioned earlier that wasn't really using their full potential. Let's call it like that. Stjepan is a really cool, optimistic guy. He's a lot into gaming and esports, and he does his live streams on Twitch. And he's really good at it. But we connected recently really well because I was looking for a developer for my for an editor for my YouTube channel, and he volunteered there. He learned a lot through working on my videos. I learned a lot from him because he knew a lot more these technical details, and we're kind of both going in the same direction. I would advise for you to take a look at Stjepan's streams, leave a link below, and also his Instagram page. He's a really cool guy, and I think we'll have him on as well because gaming is something that I'm really interested in as well since I was a little kid. I'm thinking of doing a 4th YouTube channel called Untitled Gaming, where I would stream on Twitch and other places and talk about games and just have fun because all this personal development stuff and talking about business, it is very formal sometimes. So a lot of times when I'm talking to people, I have a feeling that they're a little bit too rigid. So I also like to relax by playing games and, just relaxing at the end of the day. But the last episode that I did was completely different. It was fully focused on business, personal development, mindset. And it was a guy that's pretty famous right now. I would say he's the most famous from the first 10 episodes that I did. His name is Jan de Jong, and he's the initiator of the Digital Nomad Visa. I would highly recommend this episode. I think best so far. He started multiple companies there, got really famous on LinkedIn because he's doing a lot of content. He has a lot of followers, and I think he's just doing the right thing, talking about the right stuff. And he basically managed to change a law in Croatia. So that's something really, really interesting, and I would advise you following him. Other than that, this is the 11th episode where I talk a little bit about everything that happened until now. I would love to hear your feedback on what would you like to see more on the Uncle Gold podcast, and what are some of your best parts that you've seen already on the Uncle Gold podcast. And for the last parts of this podcast, I saved up the idea of goals and plans and what I want to do for the rest of the year. So on my creation channel, Borna Zuber, I will work on creating videos about Ireland, YouTube, and mindset. Those are some of the 3 main topics that I'm interested in. I don't think just moving to another country is enough. I think there has to be a lot more elements that need to click before somebody reaches full potential. A lot of people think that, I'm just going to move to another country and all my problems are going to be solved. No, it's not like that. You will basically in any condition in life, you'll probably get smacked on the face at one point, and you need to develop a mindset that helps you get through that. It doesn't matter if you're in Croatia, Ireland, or anywhere else in the world. bad things are going to come to you, things are going to change, something is going to be unexpected, and you're just not going to be prepared for it. So you have to learn how to emotionally embrace the situation and kind of overcome it. Taking the right actions is also important, but sometimes you can't see what actions are right, which are not. So, best would be to develop a mindset that helps you improve over time and take more action that leads you towards your goals. Since it's January right now, a lot of people are setting goals for the new year, and I wanted to encourage you to take bigger steps, bigger goals. Make a goal that's emotionally appealing to you, something that drives you forward, something that pushes you into the right direction. My big goal for this year is actually achieving financial freedom. I want to do it through providing value on my 3 YouTube channels to everybody watching, and I want to get to monetization on all 3 of them. I want to also use other options online of how to earn money to make it easier, like affiliate links and Google AdWords and similar stuff like that, brand deals, of course. Right now, since it's just the beginning for all 3 channels, I haven't set up any of it yet. It's a little bit too early, but I have a good feeling about 2021, and I think we'll achieve it this year, at least on one of the channels. I hope you will support me there. If you haven't subscribed to all the 3 YouTube channels, I will link the links below, and I will do whatever I can to bring the most value to you guys. That's one of the things that I learned from Gary Vee. He always looks at the audience. He always looks at what can I do for the people listening, watching, consuming my content. You are probably here because you want to hear something that will make your life better. If I can provide you with that value, your time will be well spent. So I will give it my best to improve myself, to be a better host, to make this podcast a lot better. I will also give it my best to bring on interesting people who talk about interesting topics, who have the right energy, the right mindset, and kind of are going with their lives in the direction where other people will want to be. I have a lot of people lined up already, as I said before, and I think this year will be great for podcasting. As you see, I do everything here from home, here in Ireland. Long term, it will be great to have like a podcast studio where I could, have a whole room for recording and get the equipment and gear on a higher level. I feel it's too early for that. I think it's not necessary with the quality of the microphone and the camera that I have. I think it's fine for now. So we're just going to keep it like that. When things start rolling faster, we'll, of course, adapt and explore other options. Right now, I would love to get to know more people online and talk about interesting topics. So if you want to join the Uncle Goal podcast, feel free to reach out on the email I provided down below in the description. Also, if you know other people that might be interesting, that have interesting stories and that will be valuable for other people to listen to, I'm open to bringing new guests on. Maybe January is a little bit full on my calendar because I want to prepare a lot for the year. And I already have 5 podcasts that I'm doing in the next few days. So it will be pretty stacked, but February sounds good. So feel free to reach out. Also connect to me on social media. I'm mostly active on LinkedIn for more like this business type of content. And if you want more like personal, relaxed type of content, I'm available on Instagram. Feel free to add me there under Borna Zuber on both accounts. And this kind of leads us to the end of this podcast. I enjoyed talking to you guys. Well, to myself as well. As I said, this is the first time that I did a solo episode like that. I don't usually do it. I usually have someone on the other end. I prefer personally talking to someone else in person, but because of this whole lockdown situation, everyone's at home and you can't meet people. So I'm going to focus this podcast on Zoom calls for now. And hopefully in the future, when everything gets back to normal, there will be a studio where people can come to and talk more. And yeah, I have a lot of plans for guests. I'm going to bring a really cool guy in the next few episodes that knows a lot about YouTube. And I think if you're interested in producing content, he will have a lot to say there. There's a few people who are in the personal development space that we're going to bring a lot of value for those of you who like to work on yourself. Also, people who are not that much into personal development, but are doing interesting stuff in their lives and talking about cool topics. We're going to talk about stuff like that as well. I want to open up more this podcast to make it even longer because, as I noticed before, some people open up after like 15 minutes, some people take longer. I think that will be even better for this show, and I look forward to meeting a lot of you guys online. Feel free to leave a comment below so I know how you like the podcast and what do you see where this podcast will go. Also, I hope the year 2021 and all the years afterwards will be very successful for you. I know that you're probably thinking of everything bad that happened in the last year and are kind of afraid of it, but I would like to encourage you to take a step back and think of the things that you do want happening and focus on those and try to figure out the steps that will take you there. It's always easier when you can kind of dissect your goals into smaller chunks, smaller bits that kind of gives you the steps where you want to go. And I hope you achieve them, guys. Spread the positivity around the world, stay positive, do what you can, and it'll bring you some great results. Thank you for being with me on the Uncle Gold podcast. My name is Borna Zuber. This is the 11th episode. I will make, of course, some clips for the Uncle Gold podcast clips channel. And I hope I see you in the next episode with Brendan, where I talk more with him about Tesla and specifically SpaceX. Have you been thinking about going to Mars maybe? And do you think that we will have space tourism in the next few years? It's an exciting period to be alive, and I see only progress. And I think Tesla and SpaceX are one of the companies that are doing heaps to move us forward. Brendan is the man that he really spends a lot of time focusing on this stuff, and he really knows a lot about. So I'm looking forward to the next episode, chatting again with him. We'll have multiple people from the first 10 episodes coming back. We'll have new people joining. And for now, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching on the YouTube channel, and I'll see you in the next episode. Guys, all the best. Happy New Year, and we'll see you in the next episode.
The Uncle Gold Podcast.